kind of like having the flu for 8 years. I was throwing up sometimes for hours during the day and was running to the bathroom, coming out the other end, and I had absolutely no energy. It was almost like a comatose, anesthetized sleep. I was just absolutely exhausted. And after I had my daughter Isabel, she's 8 now, this has been going on for 8 years. I didn't know whether it was mental or physical. My dad is a very well-respected physician in Detroit, and I would go home to visit him and I would just be throwing up. And he wanted me to go to clinics. He called different doctors for me to go see and to try and get well. I started seeing a psychiatrist. I think I was on 51 medications. And I remember asking my psychiatrist one time, do you realize what it's like to experience the side effects of the medication that you're putting me on? I gained 70 pounds after going on depression medication. I went on medication to stop me from throwing up, to stop me from having diarrhea, and then to help me go to sleep at night, and then medication to get me going in the morning. And so I asked her one time, years after I've been doing this, do you know what it's really like to suffer the side effects of all this medication? And she said, well, no. And I said, have you ever been on depression medication? And her answer was no. It just wasn't working. And I saw gastrointestinal, I saw internal medicine doctors, and they all would prescribe medication. And about 2 weeks before I came in here, I was throwing up so much, so severely, I no longer could keep food down in the morning, which is kind of the norm for me. And then it moved to lunch, where I couldn't keep my food down at lunch, to the point where it was at dinner. So I called my internal medicine doctor. I said, look, I'm at the point now where I can't keep food down until night. And then when night times, it was like a food party. I was hungry, wanting carbs. It's really all that I wanted at night was carbs. And at that point, I wasn't even on any medication. And so I went in to see him, and he gave me a prescription, one more prescription. And that really, mentally, it did something, put me in a bottom-out place. And I called my husband. I remember crying, going to the drugstore to get the prescription filled. And I called my husband and I said, I am not fixable. I am not fixable. I've tried psychiatrists, internal medicine. My father set me up with the best physicians in the country. I've read every book you can read about depression, post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't even know if I'm depressed. What if I'm just depressed because I can't engage with my children? I mean, I had the whole summer plan that we were going to spend time together, go to the park, swim, and I'd go to the park, and the very first day that I took them there, I could not stay awake. It was such a crippling exhaustion. In fact, one of the consultants that I saw, a psychiatrist consultant, we lived out in the country, and he said, look, you have environmental depression. I don't think there's anything physically wrong with you. I think you have environmental depression. You need to move to a community, get into an activity that you really enjoy, get involved in a church, and start going to 12-step meetings, because I grew up with a mother who was an alcoholic. So we'd been renovating this beautiful farmhouse for a year. My husband said, whatever it takes to help you get well, we'll do it. We gave the horses away, gave the goats away, cried when they all left, moved into the city, lived across the street from this beautiful park. And there I was at the park, and I couldn't stay awake. There I was joining a tennis league, throwing up at the baseline. I would be playing a match, I'd go to the baseline and I'd start throwing up. And of course you scare people. Are you all right? Are you sick? What do you say? I don't know. I don't know whether I'm crazy or whether this is something physical. And the paralytic on the mat, did he want to get well? Well, he laid there for 20 or 30 years. I really wanted to get well. And it got to the point where I was taking my son's pull-ups, splitting them open and wearing them, because I never knew when I was going to have to go to the bathroom. And I just thought at that point, wow, I mean, I used to be vice president of a company in real estate development. Now I'm pooping on myself. I mean, what's happened to me? I mean, I lost all my dignity. And when you're sick, you lose your dignity. You lose your joy. And that's what brought me here, is I did not think that I was fixable. I was very pessimistic, because when you've seen that many doctors and you've been on that many meds and you had that much hope, you become pessimistic. It's almost like a learned helplessness. You learn to be helpless. What's the point of trying? What's the point of doing this? Because I'm not going to get well. And my husband was the one that brought me home the books. And I started reading Dr. Ace's book, reading the Foundational Food Guide. And the first 2 visits, I was still throwing up. And I remember being very embarrassed about that I was throwing up when the nurse came in, throwing up when Dr. Asa came in, throwing up, bouncing on the rebounder. I couldn't stop what was happening to me. And I would have quit, but the health coach here was just, I said, look, I can't keep the food down, and I'm constantly nauseous. I don't know how to follow the program when you can't keep the food down. And I started doing the meal replacements, and that really started turning me around very quickly, because it's 21 grams of protein in 1 drink. And it was about the 3rd week that I started to feel better. And people started coming up to me and saying, your skin is different. When my dad was a dermatologist, I thought, oh my gosh, no, I've been out in the sun. I should have put on my sunscreen or something. They said, no, you have color in your face. The difference for me was, instead of lying in bed, I'd get up in the morning, go down, and see what my kids needed. My son would say, play with me, and I would. I remember one morning, my husband said, are you all right? And immediately I sat up, holding my stomach, and said, no, I'm sick. This is about the 3rd or 4th week on the program. And I was immediately going to run to the bathroom, because that's all that I know. Didn't know whether I was going to throw up or have diarrhea, but I was going to do something. I remember sitting up, and I said, I'm sick. He said, you are? And I said, no, wait a minute, I'm fine. It was such a strange thought to say, I'm fine. And that's when I knew that something was really changing, because I was having the energy to do the things that I'd always wanted to do. So it wasn't that I was a bad mother. I'd been telling myself I was selfish. Too much was going on to my husband because I wasn't capable. Whether it was physical or emotional, I didn't know how I got to that point, but I just was. That I wasn't a selfish mother, I just was sick. And when you're sick that long enough, you get to the point where you say, do I really want to continue living this way? And I remember telling Dr. Asa my first visit, I cannot do this anymore. Telling my internal doctor the week before I came in, I cannot do this anymore. I cannot live like this anymore. I choose not to live like this anymore. And he went through the process. Do you have a gun? Do you have pills? Do you have this? I said, no, that's not it. I want to live, but I can't live like this anymore. And I said, I need to know whether you really believe that you can help me get well. And he said, I think I can help you. I believe that I can help you. And so I looked at him and I said, this is a godly man. I believe he's a godly man. I believe that he can help me, and I'm going to have faith in that, and that's what I'm going to believe. And I said, all right, I'm going to do my best.